It is time for part 2 of the Chucking Darts NBA regular season preview. Last episode, we ranked offenses 1 through 30. This episode, we rank defenses 1 through 30. Welcome to Chucking Darts, a podcast of informed, rigorous, reckless, harmless, speculative, and fun predictions about the game we love. And you can call me Chuck. This is episode number 180. 179 was the aforementioned preview. That was with Sam Ferris, who's at Draft Dummies. Sam was good enough to predict all rookie teams. He gave his, I gave mine, and then we compared notes on the predicted finish of all 30 NBA offenses per 100 possessions. Part 2 is naturally defense, and joining me for the second time, I believe, Matt, is Mat Issa. Is it Issa? Did I just mess that up for you?
No, it's Issa. Sometimes
Issa.
I have to do a double take and be like, how do you say my last name again? Yeah, it's Issa.
Yeah. Mat Issa, who's contributed to Opta Analyst, to Forbes, to SB Nation. You've been doing interview. Who'd you interview this summer, Matt?
I actually we were talking about him in the pregame. Anthony Simons.
Yeah.
Interviewed him, Jarris Walker, Zach Edey, Deebo Samuel. That was kind of a weird thing.
Look at you go, man.
Ricky Council, Gary Payton. Just take what comes at you.
Gary Payton the second, the mitten or the glove?
The glove. The glove. He was very funny. He's actually a very friendly guy. You wouldn't have expected it just based on how tenacious he was at the point of attack during his heyday, but very, very chill dude.
You'd expect him to be rude and discourteous
I don't
to you?
know. It's just like the only experience I had with the guy before that was, watching him tear people apart with his perimeter defense. So I kind of assumed that, hey, he's probably not the nicest guy on earth, but I was wrong. And that's why we don't typecast people.
Yeah, that is absurd. But it's why I love you, Matt. You are so prolific.
I love you too, Chuck.
Thanks, man. We had a lot of fun at our I think the episode you came on was the sort of the rookie graduation episode of 2022 at the end of the year when we gave sort of our all rookie teams in retrospect. That was a lot of fun. And I'm happy to have you back, man, apart from your very, very busy schedule. So no need in beating around the bush. We're here to rank defenses. It's easy to forget, I should say, easy to forget in this sort of prediction season that, looking at these teams is just you have to sort of compare their offense, compare their defense, kind of average it out. And that gives you a pretty good idea what their record's going to be if you are into that sort of thing. The game is, of course, always offense and defense. There is no special teams in basketball. So having said that, is there anything you want to get to off the top before we get to your number one defense? Any sort of overarching trend that came out to you in doing this exercise?
So just because I guess the big thing is you got to think about things like regular season, playoff defense, and we're talking about regular season defenses here.
Regular season defense.
There's different things that kind of, what's the word, that matter when assessing that kind of thing. Like there's some teams, for example, that we'll talk about it when we get there, but there's teams that because they're such a bad offense, they need to be good on defense, so they'll probably just put in more effort during the regular season. I think a great example of that was last year's Chicago Bulls, who just had a really bad offense, but they were just so well coached on defense. The effort was there, and they ended up, fifth, despite lackluster personnel. Personnel, another important thing, I think, and I'm sure another thing we should kind of hit at. Well, two more things. One, I feel like we should try to create some tiers because again, you could have just one weird game where Malik Beasley comes in and hits 13 threes just because he can. And then your defensive rating is shot. You know what I mean? You can go from 13 to 18. So we should probably try to do ranges. And then the other thing, I feel like the biggest, in terms of individual player, when I was looking at these teams, was I was looking at who they started center, because rim protection is the number one variable in terms of what impacts defensive rating.
Interesting. You think so?
Well, I just remember reading in a book. Was it?
No, I like
empiricism.
Yeah, when I went to do this, I actually, of course, rim protection matters a lot, but I also started to maybe think of it a little bit differently, that, everything matters. All these pieces
Yeah.
interact. The Bulls that you mentioned are a great example because they have Alex Caruso, who's an all defense guy. And when you have players who can really muck up screens and fight over screens at the point of attack, as long as your rim protector is well stationed and like their footwork is sound, even if Vooch doesn't have the most ridiculous dimensions in the world for erasing shots, you can sort of manufacture a good defense over the course of a season. The Bulls also stand for another important thing about predicting defense and having success on defense, which is continuity. And it's, again, in the regular season, in the past, players have missed time over the last 5-10 years. Like, load management has come into vogue. And so that can mess with these rankings as well a little bit. Case in point, last year, the Los Angeles Clippers finished 17th. You look at the Los Angeles Clippers personnel, you would figure they'd be a little bit better than that, top half of the league at least. But if they're never playing together, not only are you not getting your best personnel on the floor, but defense is about communication, reaction, understanding your teammates' responsibilities, and always being in position. That sort of thing is only built out through reps and reps and reps. And so the more games that a given unit plays together, those Bulls, I think Vooch played 80 games. I think Levine played 77. Pat Williams played 82. The more games you play together, you can start to, sort of grind your way to a good rating. So part of this is going to be predicting, which teams are going to have sort of the least amount of turmoil at a certain level. So there's a lot of interacting factors. But yeah, I if anything, I've started to look more not as like a 1-to-1 predictor, but I've started to look more at like, well, what guards and wings do you have to like deter as many drives as possible? How is your nail help? How are you at fighting over screens? How frequently can you switch a guard wing pick and roll, a guard pick and roll, that sort of thing? Anything else though, man? I kind of like jacked your point and ran
No,
with it.
no,
I
no. I think
apologize. But
I feel like I probably should have. I was oversimplifying. I probably should have prefaced it by saying like, yeah, of course, like that's I think point of attack defense is. I'm writing about it. Spoiler alert, with Dennis Smith Jr. and how I think a
yeah,
player like him has become more valuable because of how important it is. Like, you could build a great defense through having like being anchored by point of attack defenders like the Bulls were with Patrick Beverley, Ayo Dosunmu, and Alex Caruso last year. I think that matters. Another thing we'll probably talk about is like how much shooting luck did you have last year?
yep,
If
sure.
teams were just missing all their open threes against you, that probably won't happen again for you this year. It doesn't tend to work out like that. So like how will that factor into things? There's one team specifically that I brought down a bunch because of how much shooting luck they had last year and how little I believe in their defensive personnel.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, continuity is a big thing because it's like you have to remember, like, these guys, like, they don't spend all summer like in the lab working out together. Like, most of them don't. Some do, some get in the lab, some get after it, right? But it's like usually most of these guys come to training camp and it's like the first time like they've ever like played together since the last season or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
there's so
And it's
much
like,
churn. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And so it's like you have like a week, right? You have a week and it's like you'd say about 15, 20 hours worth of practice in that week to install all your like general principles for the season. So like if you've already been playing together, if you have the same nucleus like the Bulls did, they had that 2021-22 nucleus come back to 22-23. It's like, okay, we don't have to start with the basics here. We have the basics down. We can move on to other stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like something you have to think about too, just in general with teams and how valuable continuity can be. But yeah, so just think about these factors: point of attack defense, rim protection, shooting luck, narratives, um, coaching, continuity. I think
Yeah.
that's
How
probably
how
right.
rude they seem like they'd be like in real life, that sort of thing. All right, let's kick it off, man. Let's kick it off. What your first tier? How many teams are in it?
Tier would be so okay. This are like elite, elite defense. I think I have four. Yeah, I have four elite regular season defense. No, 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 no. Oh, let's do the tier. Let's do the tiers. Can we do the tiers after the fact? After we
Sure,
have
sure, sure.
it's already hurting me.
Who is your number one defense?
I had the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh, we are a match, sir. So do I.
Really?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
okay.
Yep, that's my
Just
number one. Go ahead.
tell me if so. Addition of Marcus Smart,
Yeah.
obviously, right? Return of Steven Adams, another big body in the paint. He's always had a positive effect on defensive ratings throughout his career. Allows Jaren Jackson to do more switching. Brandon Clark's eventually going to come back. Hopefully he'll be okay. That injury won't derail his career. And then honestly, Morant missing the first 25 of the games of the season will probably just juice their defense up a bunch because they're going to be playing a bunch of defensively slanted lineups.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that all of that stuff, and Jaren Jackson probably being motivated to repeat as a defensive player of the year. I think all that stuff just kind of combines for me. That makes me think that they're going to be the best defense in the league next season.
Yep, I agree with all of that. Smart also, the last couple of years in Boston, really for the last season and a half, Boston was far and away the best defense in the NBA. That Marcus was there. They have also excellent personnel, but even if there's a little bit of a campaign maybe to discredit a little bit of what Marcus brought to that team now, since they have these shiny new toys for them up in Boston, there's no question that in the moment, everyone was talking about how Marcus communicated, how, his willingness to switch, to take on any sort of assignment, to scram switch, bad guys out, like all of that sort of conducting traffic, he's excellent at. And your point about teams needing to be good at defense, that helps them commit, be good right away. I think that's going to be the case with Memphis because without Ja, I think offensively they're going to be challenged. And so, defensive player of the year returning, Jaren's impact on their defensive numbers last year was incredible how good they were when Jaren was on the floor. And so I think they're just ready to go. All the stuff we've been talking about. I also think, to your point about playing slanted lineups, like Luke Kennard will play plenty for that team, but I also think they're going to play Conchar. I just think they love Conchar. I think he is like the Grizzlies' Grizzly, and he is a very good defender and usually has a very positive effect on defensive lineups with some of the stuff we've been talking about. So I guess the only question about them is they are maybe a little lighter on the wing than they've been in years past. They're Roddy, I'm sure, is going to get plenty of time. Zaire Williams is going to get plenty of time. Do you have any concern about that? I mean, we agree. I'm just asking if you've noticed anything with them, anything you're looking for with them.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I'll say this. I just want to add this in. This actually has nothing to do with what you said, but I just wanted to
Nice.
mention when you go double big like Adams and Jaren Jackson, that juices your defense. Like historically,
Yeah.
my favorite example is like when the Clippers in like the mid 2000s used Elton Brand and Chris Kaman together, like that. Not exactly two great defenders, but like put them together and you have a really nice defense because they're two big bodies in the paint. But yeah, with that, they just I don't know, man, that team, they just have like a way with in terms of like the wings and stuff. It's just like they have just a way of like finding guys
Mm-hmm.
to do things for them. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about that, especially with like the back line being fortified with Adams and Jackson, and then of course, I mean, and Tillman too, and then having Smart. I
Yeah.
just feel like that infrastructure, and then they do have like a bunch of guys where it's like if just like two of them hit, you know what I mean? Like if they could just get Roddy and Laravia to play good, you know what I mean? It's like okay, we're cool then.
Okay. Yeah. Who do you have next?
Okay, so next, I went with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are we going to start disagreeing now? Do
Oh,
you have them
I
or?
had him third. I mean, they're right
Okay,
there.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Cleveland Cavaliers. The only reason I don't have them first, is because I think they're going to experiment more with single big lineups
Yes, I agree.
to practice with spacing and stuff, trying to figure out something that works there. And again, the trade off is play single big. You get more offense on the floor probably, but you're going to lose a little bit of that defensive value. But then you also have to factor in, I think, and the reason why I had them at 2 is like Evan Mobley's probably going to be on his own defensive player of the year campaign. And I'm expecting him to improve a little bit this season, even though last year was very, very impressive. I think he can improve even more on that end of the court. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
expecting that. So yeah, I had him at 2. I think the only reason I didn't have him over Memphis is because, again, like I said, I think they're going to experiment more with single big lineups.
Yeah. I think also the additions of Strus and Yang was sort of, I think it's sort of a conscious effort by them of saying, we can afford to give a little
Mm-hmm.
away on defense in order to
Mm-hmm.
maximize the spacing and make sure we're always getting good shots. Especially in a single big lineup, if you wanted to have Mobley at the 5 and dot him with shooting at every spot, those are two guys who can help with that. I also, Garland and Mitchell really put in a lot of effort last year, busting their ass on defense all year, which is great. And maybe they'll do that all again. But it is a lot to ask for sort of two undersized guards to do that year over year over year. I mean, Mitchell's always had very good defensive tools, better than Garland's, but has been an inconsistent defender in Utah. So I'm looking to see if maybe there's a little bit of regression at point of attack there. But Mobley's so good and Allen's so good that, they were the number one defense last year. They return so much personnel that there's no reason to really overthink them. My number 2 defense, by the way, is the Boston Celtics.
Okay,
Where did you have them? You had them at 3. All right. By the way, and unless someone thinks that we're just this is a great minds think alike situation. Cleveland, Boston, and Memphis were the top 3 defenses last year. So Matt and I are not exactly reinventing the wheel here, but again, not too hard to think that Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum can be the anchors of a very good defense. That's also a team that tends to their best players tend to stay pretty healthy. Tatum in particular is very durable. Porzingis is an interesting. When you mention rim protection, how do you think Porzingis is going to do in their scheme?
Pretty good now. He's got Drew Holiday. I think they can run a lot of drop. He's actually, like, I remember scouting him last year, early in the Wizards season, because I remember one day I was just looking at the Dunks and Threes website and I was like, wait a second, this guy's 17th in EPM, like 20 games in the season. Like, wait a second, like, what's going on here? And I was just watching him, and he's of course like a very talented play finisher on offense, but on defense, he's a very good rim protector. He's a big body. He positions himself well. I think he's a good drop big man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think especially now with Holiday, who's a really good, screen navigator, kind of their little synergy will be very nice. He looks rejuvenated. In the clips I've seen from the preseason, just playing on a winning team will do that for you. And I made a note. So even outside of their top 6, a lot of their bench guys are like defensive first guys, like Delano Banton, Lamar Stevens, O'Shea Brissett, Jordan Walsh.
Wenyen Gabriel.
Wenyen and Gabriel. So it's like, I don't know. I like their personnel. Yeah. Not too much. Not too
One
much.
thing
I could see why you put that too.
One thing I am watching with them though is how they rebound, because they've played so many double big lineups with Robert Williams and Al Horford the last couple of years. They've never been, like, during that time period, like one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the league. It's never sort of been their identity, but they had those big bodies. If Tatum is going to be playing a lot of 4 alongside Porzingis not the most gifted rebounder for a center as they go anyway. I do want to see how, like, second chance points tend to affect them. That's something to be watching with them. But again, we both really, really like them. So we have the same top 3. Who do you have next?
Okay, this could really backfire on me, and maybe I'm over indexing a little bit too much on what I saw in the playoffs. But I had the Los Angeles Lakers at number 4.
I have them number 5.
Okay. I'm really curious to see who you have at number 4 then. Yeah, so obviously Anthony Davis, I think, is the best rim protector on the planet. He finally looked healthy. He was healthy throughout the playoff run. I really don't want to jinx the guy, knock on wood, but I think, and then Vanderbilt is a very, very good regular season defender, and the two of them, their synergy is like, it's incredible. I think Taurean Prince is a slightly better defender than Troy Brown Jr., so adding him helps. I think Rui's comfortable with himself, especially after that playoff run. He's another big body they can use.
They
Gabe
are
Vincent.
full of enormous players. This team
Yeah,
is
yeah,
so they will not have any problem rebounding the ball, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But yeah,
And then
yeah.
I mean, LeBron James just has so much guile as a defender. Him and Austin Reeves both, I think, are very like have just a high level of institutional knowledge.
Hmm.
D'Lo's D'Lo. Again, having Gabe Vincent now kind of covers up when D'Lo's really acting like D'Lo. And then Jackson Hayes is the backup five. I feel like this will be a good situation for him to
I
kind of come
agree.
in and play 10, 15 minutes and just offer some rim protection. So yeah, that's all those variables. I was thinking, you know what? But this could also so last year they were 12th. I could see them being like a middle of the pack defense in the regular season and then really amping it up in the playoffs. But my thing is like I see them being so this goes back to your like put together your defensive rating and offensive rating, and
Hmm.
like this is what the kind of team. I see the Lakers being at the top of the West, but I think
I
they have like a meddling offense. So like the only way they'd be there is to be an elite defense. You know.
Yeah. So in my offense episode, this won't be too much of a tangent.
Mhm.
I like their offense. I
Okay.
I think that it is going to surprise people because I really like their depth, and I think even if LeBron's off the floor or even if he's missing games, as long as you have that Reeves AD pick and roll, and you can use that as the foundation of an offense that can get good shots repeatedly as long as you have shooting surrounding them. And if they have, Prince and either Vincent or D'Lo on the floor, or if D'Lo's running pick and roll and Reeves is spotting up, like I think they can find ways to get good shots. But I think that even if their offense is good, they will be committed on defense. And like LeBron as a defender is not what he was in like Miami, of course,
Mhm.
but he knows how to like foster a defensive identity. When they won their ring in the bubble, he was 35 years old. It's not as though he was in his athletic prime then as well, but
Yeah.
under Vogel, that the identity of that team was its defense. Absolutely. And I think that LeBron understands so completely like the value of physically overwhelming your opponents, imposing your will, physically cleaning the glass, that like he might conserve energy strategically, but he's not gonna let the rest of the team like sag off on defense if he feels like he has a chance to win a title. And I think this Lakers team has a chance to win a title. So I don't expect sort of a malaise from them. And in watching them in preseason, it looks like they are really ready to go. So I had them fifth. Big fan of theirs. Think they're going to have a great season.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So who's your fourth?
My fourth might come as a bit of a surprise, but
I'm
I
hoping you
have
call it. Go ahead.
I have the Philadelphia 76ers.
I think that's our first big. I don't have. It'll be a while before we talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. I was going about this.
Whoa, no. Okay. All right.
Tell me
All
what's
right. All
coming.
right. So number one, less James Harden. Now, who knows how long he's there in name, but he is going to play less. Okay. So there is a certain element, even though he holds up in the post well on switches, whatever. Like this is sort of the opposite of LeBron in terms of making sure the identity of the team is defensive. He's not going to do that. In bringing in Nurse, who asks a lot of his defenders, of course, always has, a very aggressive scheme. Um, I I just think that they are going to rotate on time. I think there's going to be sort of a honeymoon period with Nurse where they really commit and play very, very hard for him, and their style will look much different than under Rivers. Like they'll still play drop because that's what favors Embiid and everything. But I think that he's going to play Melton a lot of minutes, a lot, especially in Harden's absence if they haven't traded him yet. And I love Melton as both a gap shooting defender, and a point of attack guy. So the main question would be sort of how does Maxey look? Because Maxey's never really been. He's sort of in the Donovan Mitchell category as always having had good defensive tools, but he's never been a positive defender, not really. And there's just something it might be going on a little bit of faith, but I think he can get to, with the right coaching, sort of like a neutral defender level this season. This will be his fourth season in the league. So he's not really going to be at a weakness of, pardon me, a strength deficiency. And Embiid is still a really good rim protector. He needs to be in shape to be a really good rim protector, and he needs to, the offense not to wear him down too much. But he is still a great deterrent at the rim. And I believe last year, even under Rivers, who's known as a more sort of laissez-faire players kind of coach, I think they finished 7th or 8th. They're still in the top 10. So I think their floor is deceptively high. PJ Tucker's still there. He's ancient, but he does a lot of defensive work that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, especially making sure that guys are organized and in their right spot. And I just think that I think the Nurse bump is going to be real for them in year 1. But where do you have them? So let's disagree. Where do you have them?
Here, I just want to pull up their opponent shooting stuff. Sorry, this is bad podcasting.
Is this the one team that benefited from opponent shooting?
No. There's another team. I think last year they finished. I had in my notes they finished 8th. You're like you said. But yeah, so opponent shooting luck on wide open threes. They had the 5th lowest percentage on the season. Just some food for thought. But my thinking is, okay, like, yeah, one, the Harden things like this looming thing. And I do agree there's like a world where like they just become like a super defensive centric team they become like, I'm trying to think of a great example of it. Like the early 2000s Spurs, where it's like their offense, like this is like pre-Ginobili, pre-Parker, where their offense is just like kick Embiid in the post. This is going to get ugly, but you'll do it. And then it's like, we're just going to be a really good defensive team. They have some nice pieces like Oubre, Patrick
Jaden
Beverly, Jaden Springer, Ricky Council, my guy.
Yeah, I love Ricky, but I mean, he's not good. But I love Ricky. But yeah,
D'Anthony Melton. I love Melton. So my thinking was, I think Embiid's going to end up being very overburdened on offense, regardless of if Harden plays or not. It's going to take away from his defense. I think it's going to get a little wonky with Nurse. I think that PJ Tucker is going to take a step back. I feel like this is finally it. And he's very important to defense. I think the shooting luck again is going to come back to bite them. And yeah, I think I don't know. I don't see it.
What do you think? 14. What do you think about Pat Bev there? You think Bev still has some juice?
Yeah, I think he has juice. I mean, he juiced the Bulls defense last season. Again, so like if it ends up where Harden just is gone and they get Terrence Mann, I'll be like, yeah, this is for sure like a top 7 defense because you have Terrence Mann with Pat Beverly, with D'Anthony Melton, and then it's like, but I'm sorry. Yeah, so 14. I'm so flabbergasted because I didn't think we would be this off on it. But yeah, I'm at 14.
Okay, we'll see. Maybe that shooting really regresses, but I
think it's gonna be a bad year for Philly, man. It's gonna be a weird
year.
You do?
Oh,
it's
man.
Gonna be a weird year.
Oh, I mean, they've had weird years for the last 12 years. Every year has been weird. So hopefully they're used to it and they can sort of thrive in their oddity. But all right, let's keep going then. Who do you have 5th?
Okay, this is one of the teams where I might be too high on them, but I'm just like, just see the vision there. Yeah. The Toronto Raptors.
Okay, I had Toronto not too far from here. I had them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th. I'm 10th, so still a top 10 unit. Go ahead.
Okay, they were let's see here. They were 5th on defense after the All-Star break. Excuse me, after the trade deadline when they acquired Jakob Poeltl. Yeah. So basically, when I did a deep dive on the Raptors, when they were really reeling, whatever it is, in December, my 2 big things were their defense were like, okay, like their point of attack, they just keep like it's not in theory it looks good because they have all these like big, long, versatile wings and forwards, but they don't actually defend the point of attack that well. And then there's not really a trustworthy rim protector. Well, Jakob Poeltl is a very good rim protector, and he helped them out big time, as evidenced by being 5th on defense. And then I think Schroeder coming in for Van Fleet, while he's not nearly the offensive player, just he's such a pest at the point of attack. We saw it last year, the way he guarded. He was able to bother Murray a little bit, chase Curry around in the playoffs, and then adding Jalen McDaniels, adding Grady Dick, just more, bigger guys, length. And this is also that team I was talking about here, where I think they're just going to be so bad on offense that they need this. Like they need to be a very very good defense. I think you're going to get a lot of effort from those guys. Get Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby. Yeah, I see them being a very very good defense. But if I was on your offense pod, I'd probably see them being like a bottom 7 offense too, bottom 5 offense.
Yeah, I think that's where about. I think we had him somewhere in the early 20s.
Yeah.
Sam and I both. And this is actually sort of the flip side of the needing to be good at defense. I think that, at a certain level, if the ball's not going in the hoop and you can't set your defense all the time, getting back in not only to prevent transition, but just to prevent semi-transition, that sort of thing. Like, if you are not shooting well, the other team is going to get more opportunities to get into early sort of cross-matched offense. I think that will hurt them a little bit. But I agree about all your points regarding their personnel. I think their personnel is, could sort of top out at sort of maybe top 5, top 6 in that area. But for Schroeder, for example, if that is just not working and they are not playing well, I could see them like removing him from the starting lineup and maybe going probably with Gary Trent at that time. I just think that team is going to mix and match and sort of experiment with their rotation now that Van Vliet is gone a little more. I also think there's a bit more potential for, Masai keeps his prices high, his asking prices high, but I think there is more potential for a trade of one of their studs in Anunoby or Siakam this year. So that was part of it too.
That's why I'm agonizing over this one, because I'm just like I can see this team this is going really badly, like really quickly. But I don't know, just as of right now where they stand. Yeah, I think they have like the chance to be a very very good defense.
Okay, all right. So we've both done our top 5. Who do you have next?
At 6, this is where I'm talking about, where it's like I probably think this defense is better equipped for the playoffs, but they never really seem to be like a number 1, number 2 defense. They're kind of like hovering this range. The Miami Heat.
No, I have them 9th. So again,
Okay.
top 10. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was so there's a couple teams I kind of had in this range. I think that the big thing is, again, like they're probably not going to be as good of an offensive team as the other like juggernauts in the Eastern Conference they're trying to keep up with. So I feel like there'll be an emphasis on playing harder on defense. And I think that adding Richardson in and having him take over for guys like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus is going to boost their defense. I think Josh Richardson's a very good defender.
He is.
And I think he'll help out a lot. I think Jaime Jaquez, he had size and rebounding. I think he'll be one of those rookies who, makes an immediate impact. And then Bam, also, I feel like he'll be one of those guys who's on his I want to win Defensive Player of the Year award tours, and that might lead to some masterful performances on his end. But again, this is a team where it's like I probably think they're honestly one of the 3 best like playoff defenses with their versatility, their style, how well coached they are. But I feel like they probably won't reach that full gear in the regular season, but they'll have to get pretty close to it just because I don't trust their offense too much right now.
Yeah, neither do I. They finished 9th last year as well, by the way. So if you're thinking to get a little boost with Richardson's addition and Strus's subtraction, then I could certainly see them
shooting luck.
They did. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I could see them finishing as high as number 6. I think Bam, I believe, played 75 last year or thereabouts. He basically had a full season of Bam. So if there's any regression there, if he misses, 10, 15 games, and I think stuff gets really ugly for them, Bam is just, even though Spoelstra can sort of smoke and mirrors stuff, Bam's Bam. He's pretty irreplaceable. So that's something that I would look for. And I think, Jaquez, I don't want to say that I'm a Jaquez pessimist. I can't figure him out. Scouting him was hard for me. I could never like really commit to, like, I wanted to like him more than I did. And I want to be more optimistic on him for the Heat than I am. Like, number one, it's hard for rookies to be like good impact defenders unless your tools are just absurd. Jaquez is brilliant. He's so smart in how he processes the game, but he's not, he doesn't have a 7'2" wingspan. He's just sort of knows where to be. He'll communicate, and I think he'll pick up exactly how physical to be, how to avoid foul trouble and stuff as the year goes along. So I don't know that I think he's going to be closer to a neutral than he is a positive for them. And it's just hard, they'll have Bam go, way out on his blitzes and recover back to the hoop and, be on a string the way they always do. But there is just a lack of just sort of weak side threat or menace with them. Because, are they going to start Kevin Love? I guess they are. So it'll be interesting to see. Spoelstra is always ahead of the curve. So I will be interested to see how he both keeps that defense elite while also making sure that, if they're going to play Jaquez and Jovic, like they seem to be suggesting they are, how he balances sort of that development as well.
Yeah, just wanted to add in real quickly. So, we talked about how the 76ers had the fifth lowest opponent field goal percentage on wide open threes. The Heat had the third highest last season.
There you go.
So that was another factor. Just want to throw that in there.
Sure. Okay, cool. So my number 6 team, I feel kind of queasy about, but I'm going to be interested to see how it looks. And, they have a track record, but it's going to be tested. So I have the Milwaukee Bucks at number 6. So what is the Dame effect to you? How low are you putting them?
I had them at 11th.
Okay.
I think it's not just it's the thing that you replace two of the, we'll say 7, 8, 9, 2 of the top 10 best point of attack defenders in Drew Holiday and Javon Carter for Damian Lillard and Cameron Payne. I know there's there's a little bit more to it than that. And then there's this other thing that has me worried. I know, Brook Lopez and Giannis, it's a very sturdy fort. But the thing is, Brook's old. He is old. And last season was kind of surprising to a lot of people how good he looked. And it's when you have that, how long can I rely on this? I know he does yoga, and he stretches, and I'm sure that'll help. But and then I think they're also going to be experimenting a lot. I think again having Damian Lillard juices your offense. I still see them as a high end team. I just see them being more of a top 4, top 5 offense this year, and then being more top 3rd defense. So yeah, I have an 11, but I'll hear you out.
I'm not really in a mood to really defend my rank. I don't feel good about it. about it. 11th, now that I hear it come out of your mouth, sounds a lot better.
They also had good shooting luck last year. Not to be the shooting luck guy, but yeah, they had very good shooting luck.
So let's see. What do you think about Marjan getting more time off their bench this year and him as a defender?
He might be the skeleton key to unlocking this thing. Honestly, it sounds funny, but if he can just be a guy, if he can be a guy, like a Christian Braun-esque type figure for them this year, I think that makes a huge difference. Because I'm looking at this team, I was talking about it with my buddy who's from Milwaukee yesterday. He was he's just super excited about them. I'm like, hey man, I'm gonna be honest with you, I still fearful of this team's their two-way depth. Jay Crowder was a good defender, for how the game was played 4, 5, 6 years ago. I don't think he's he's functionally versatile enough to really still hold that moniker. He's older, he's slower. Wes Matthews is still on that team, right? Am I remembering correctly?
Oh my God, I don't know.
He was doing some stuff last year. I'm gonna do a quick, more bad podcasting, but
I can't imagine that he's on any other team. So by that rationale, he's either on that team or retired, and I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Because he's old. He's old.
Yeah.
He's listed. Oh well, it's not important. He's not listed there, but they have Malik Beasley.
Yeah. I saw some quote from Adrian Griffin. It's Malik's gonna take on the toughest defensive assignment on a lot of nights, and I was like, he is, because that's not good. I hope not. And it's just a matter of how much, you mentioned the double big thing and how that traditionally, juices defense. Can you remember, let's for a moment, assume that there's no sort of Dame Lillard, I could win the title, so I'm going to give a bit more effort on defense.
He will.
Let's
Though.
assume
He will. He will.
I know he will, but let's just assume that he's terrible the way he has been terrible. So can you imagine, like, are there teams of recent vintage that have had sort of the double big, including like an all defense frontline player paired with such a porous point of attack guy up top? And what happened to those defenses? Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Well, okay, and this is you're gonna get mad at me because you told me not to do this, but it's kind of like last year's Cavs, on paper,
Okay.
if you think about it, and they just ended up giving effort. I think Donovan Mitchell has more tools than Damian Lillard, and I don't know even who starts. Is Malik Beasley going to start at the 2 here, or is it?
No,
Pat
I would think
Connaughton?
Connaughton would be my
Okay,
guess. But yeah, I hope they
and
don't start Beasley.
Connaughton's a better defender than both Mitchell and Garland. I feel like
Yep.
most seasons.
And Cleveland was number one, when it was all said and done.
I guess you're right, but I don't know. I just feel like there's gonna be too much, and there's just so much unknown with Adrian Griffin. How much he's gonna kind of hold true with Budenholzer's kind of philosophy, how much experimenting they're gonna do. I don't know.
Yeah, that can go the other way though. I mean, a new coach can be a shot of life sometimes. But yeah.
But back to your original question, what kind of sparked all this? Yeah, I mean, it would be very, very convenient for this team if Marjan was a guy.
Yeah.
He was a guy that could counter.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Shake out my willies there. Who do you have at number 7? And you can give a few teams now, because I mean, at this point, once you get past the top 5, the teams do tend to bunch up just in terms of what their rating is. So who are the next few you got?
Can I do one more by itself? Because I feel like this team is their own little space, and they fall in the Toronto Raptors category. So, like, I think their offense is going to be so bad, but I love their defensive personnel. Again, there's also a chance that you might trade most of these guys. There's a chance that one of them will stop playing basketball forever.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
About him. But I love their personnel and their switchability. I'm going to go with the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I thought you'd do that. Yeah.
So hear me out. So there's so many things working against this pick. I was like, okay, how did Brooklyn look last season after the Durant Irving trade? I'm like, I'm sure their defense got better. It didn't. They actually got worse. And they had good shooting luck. So there's that. And they lose Watanabe, who I love. But I mean, they add Dennis Smith Jr. Ben Simmons wasn't there during the second half of the season. He looks very, very good by all accounts. And he's like an all-league caliber defender. I mean, you have all these just long, switchy wings. Mikal Bridges. I don't want to say Cameron Johnson because he doesn't really fit that. Dorian Finney-Smith.
Royce.
Royce. And then you have a guy who's out to prove himself in the kind of elite big man defender category in Nick Claxton. So yeah, I could just and they're just gonna be really bad offensively. I can tell. They have very little on ball creation. I love Mikal Bridges. I think he's had a really cool career trajectory arc, but I don't think he's that kind of guy who can like make you just meddling on offense with bad personnel around him. So I think it's gonna be one of those things where it's like I don't think they're tanking. I think they're gonna play really hard in the defensive end. Coach Vaughn, he's very very good coach, good at getting a lot out of his guys. Just see them being a really good defense, really bad offense this year.
Look, yeah, I mean, a belief in this ranking is sort of a belief in Ben Simmons because they're going to start him. That's what everyone's saying is he's going to start for that team. So if he is, 90% of what he was even in Philly, then this is a very good ranking. And I could certainly, with how switchable they project to be, they should be a top 10 defense. I can't be optimistic on Ben Simmons putting in a full year, with all that. I can't. I just think that this is mostly going to be a lot of Spencer Dinwiddie starts at point with, Royce and Mikal and Cam, or Mikal and Dorian and Cam, and then Claxton. Still decent personnel, especially along the wing, but I worry that since Mikal's offensive usage is really going to step up, that his defense is going to recede a little bit. I think that tends to happen, especially with guys who are not physically kind of overwhelming. Mikal has great length, but he's never been sort of a just a beast on defense that can envelop someone, at point of attack, that sort of thing. So I think he might sort of come down a little bit. And if Simmons, misses more games than he plays, I love Claxton, but they will have a, how are we rebounding kind of issue. And I don't know that Claxton, I don't know that he's like, no one is Bam. I don't know that they can move Claxton as a chess piece around to deter all this stuff so much. I could see, especially if Dinwiddie's playing, that teams are going to like get to the rim and Claxton will get his blocks because he'll have to like erase a lot. But it just doesn't quite link up for me. If they play DSJ more, then I would feel more confident about it. But is like DSJ going to play more than Cam Thomas? I don't know. So I could see it. I could see the theory. I have them sort of as middle of the pack, like 15, 16 around there.
I just want to add one nugget. Steph No released. I just
yeah, we love Steph. Friend of the pod.
Love Steph.
Yeah.
Love Steph. Incredible human being. He released the top 100 defenders in the league.
Mm-hmm.
6 of them play for the Brooklyn Nets. Just saying, 6 of them play for the Brooklyn Nets. That's 7. What is it? 17% of the list or something like? No, wait, that's 6%. I'm
6% of the list. Yeah,
6% of the list. But that, hey, average team should only have like 3.1 guys on it. So, just saying.
It's true. It's true. It would be really cool if that team had a cohesive identity throughout the season and they stayed together and they're like, we want to try to win 43 games and make the playoffs and everything. That would be awesome. Awesome outcome. I am just skeptical that that's where it's going, but I see that theory. Okay. I've mentioned a couple of my teams already as they've come up because, Miami and Toronto are in this area for me. I'll say that my 7 and 8, again, they're starting to jumble up on me a little bit. I had Golden State at 7. I had Chicago at 8.
All right. So your 7 through 10 then was Golden State, Chicago, Miami, Toronto.
Yes.
Okay. So my 7 through 10, Brooklyn, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, then Golden State.
Okay. And I have Minnesota 11th, OKC 12th.
Okay, and then at 12th I have 11th I have the Bucks, and then 12th I have the Orlando Magic, and then I'm just gonna name one more because you already had them. But at 13th I have the Chicago Bulls.
Okay, I have Orlando. I have Orlando 14th, and at 13th I have the Houston Rockets.
Whoa.
We'll get to the Rockets.
Pin in that because I thought I was being too high on them, and I don't have them. We'll get to them, but
we'll put a pin in it. So thoughts, yeah, so we've got basically in some order we've got OKC, Golden State, Minnesota, Chicago to get to right now. So who jumps out to you in that group that you want to talk about?
So I love how the Chicago Bulls have built this.
I agree.
I love it, and I think Billy Donovan needs more credit than he gets. It's just like the other 12 teams I named. It's just so hard for me to. They had a little bit of shooting luck. I think they were like 10, they were like 10th or 9th in like the stat we've been citing. So it's not. They were close to the middle of the pack. So it wasn't like a crazy, but they had very good injury luck.
They did, and we mentioned it top of the show. Yeah.
I mean, Caruso's just such like a crash bandit. There's like a chance he might like hit his head on the stanchion and miss like 30 games. I got forbid, obviously, but
they got Javon to help, for the backup unit as well,
and Torrey Craig.
And I think that Kobe White has gotten better. I think he took real steps last year. Yeah.
Yes. So I want that. Again, for my own satisfaction as a fan, I want them to be in that top 10 range. So like the teams I had over them, OKC, I think they're revolutionizing the way we play defense with how they switch, how much read and react is going on out there.
Let's get to OKC. Let's give them a segment, but yeah. Okay. So who else?
The Timberwolves. I mean, just that trio of Gobert, Edwards, McDaniels, very tantalizing. I still like Troy Brown Jr., even though he's not as good as Taurean Prince. Kyle Anderson. He's actually, I was going to compare Jaime Jaquez to him a little bit, but Kyle Anderson's a very, very good defender. I think Gobert
and he does have a 7'2" wingspan, 7'2", 7'3", that neighborhood. And Kyle's incredible.
I know that. But,
yeah.
Minnesota also had some poor shooting luck last year, so regression to the mean. I had the
You
worst
think do you
defense.
think the Towns Gobert front court like that can be part of a top 10 defense? You think so?
Yeah, yeah, I think again because I was looking at. I wanted to see. I didn't write it down. I should have, but I wanted to see how they looked after their defensive rating looked after Towns got hurt in like whenever it was, early December or late November, and it honestly looked it was pretty much exactly where it ended up for the season. Like there wasn't like a
Mhm.
huge change with and without him. So yeah, I don't think that's a problem, especially with like that. Just having it like be sandwiched, like having Cat be sandwiched between Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah.
It covers up a lot. And then Finch is very familiar with covering up for Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah. McDaniels is incredible, man. What a
Yeah,
defender that guy is.
I
He
think I think him and Caruso are probably the two best non big man defenders in the NBA right now.
yeah. Yeah. I think very possible. He I discounted it a little bit because of Towns. Like I wanted to put Minnesota like sixth. I really just because it's very tantalizing, like you said. And I don't know. I something about it, I don't know if Conley is really like I feel like he might take a step back, at his age and everything. So, but they got Shake Milton, kind of like
Yeah, well, that's
Shake.
another one. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another one.
yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. But
And
you know
isn't
what?
Leonard
Like
Miller
when
seems
they're
like a dude?
good, what's up?
Isn't Leonard Miller supposed to be like, contributing this year a little bit?
I don't think so. He should because I love him, but I don't think they're with Nas and Towns and Gobert and Kyle, and I don't think so. But I wish. But yeah,
So
when it
we
looks good for them, it looks breathtaking. It's just a matter of putting that all together and where Towns falls and all of that. Okay, you want to talk about OKC?
I just want to say something real quick about the Warriors and the Magic.
Yeah, sure.
Unless you thought they warranted their own.
No, 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 no. We can combine. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So Warriors, they're gonna have GP2 this year, all year,
Hmm.
if his body will allow it. Draymond is, still the most versatile defender in basketball. I mean, he was like the Warriors were like I forget it was like first or second in opponent rim frequency. Like he was just such a rim deterrence still. Moody and Kuminga will play more minutes. Hopefully, Wiggins won't miss a huge chunk of the season, but I think their lack of size, especially at the point of attack,
Hmm.
worries me. Um, so that's why I had them in that like 9-10 range. And then the Orlando Magic were seventh in defensive rating after the deadline. And you want to talk about point of attack defense, like Suggs and Fultz at the
Oh,
point of
can't
attack.
wait.
It's
Can't
going to
wait.
cause some problems.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't have them in that upper echelon because, I mean, I'm worried about Paulo a little bit
Hmm.
on defense. And then, I mean, Wendell's not like a custodian with like the cleanups. Like he's not by no means like a Brooke Lopez type there. He's
Yeah.
still very very good, but
Last year, did they do a lot of like switch everything on that team? That's what the scheme that would seem to like most
they
cover up for
switched it.
Paolo and for Wendell to me,
I don't
is
I
if
don't
they
have
did
like
that.
the any synergy or play, but I do off the top of my head. I haven't reviewed my I think they're so if I'm remembering correctly, their base was dropped,
Hmm.
and then they would incorporate some switching. They ran a lot of zone. I remember that with their bigger lineups. But yeah, so basically all these teams are kind of jumbled in. All these teams we're talking about, just for the people listening to this to kind of, because I feel like now we're getting scatterbrained, at least
A little
me.
bit, a little bit, a little
But
bit.
so
Yeah.
all these teams are kind of talking about similar range, but the OKC thing, I think they're the top of this range because Bowser, if you're familiar with his work,
I am.
very intelligent. The basketball community is forever grateful for his contributions. But yeah, he made this video and it just kind of hit me. I'm like, wait a second, like because I've always thought on offense, they play such a distinct style from the rest of the league with all these little brush screens and the ghosting and all this stuff and just driving and kicking and driving and kicking. It's so different from like everybody else in the league. Remember they had like 10 more drives per game than the
Yep.
second most driviest team in the NBA. But on defense, they also play like a very distinct style, where it's just like a lot of like shrinking the floor, a lot of switching, a lot of kind of weak side, one man, zones up two, trusting him to make the right decision. putting a lot of kind of autonomy in their guys' hands. They have a lot of like lengthy, versatile pieces on defense. And then now, I mean, again, we've talked about the rookies. It's hard for them to make an immediate impact unless you have the tools. And I haven't watched him very closely. Yeah, I see clips and stuff. I watch him in summer league a little bit, but he's also a fake rookie, by the way. But Chet Holmgren, adding a true rim protector to this, a defense that was already 13th last year, but it was just enough to kind of get him. I had him at 8. I can't remember. I had him. Was it 10 or 11?
Me, technically 12th, but this is all a jumble. They could be 7th for all I know, as far as my rankings go. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's kind of where I'm at with them.
Yeah, they fall into the I expect their guys to like not miss many games. Obviously, freak injuries can happen, but they're young and the way they play is so organized that you would hope that they stay together. They're always prepared and very well coached. And this is really about like how much of an adjustment period is there for Chet? I mean, it's easy to say you're replacing, rookie Jalen Williams from Arkansas, Jay Will, with Chet, and that those minutes, it's just going to make the defense much better. And certain aspects, particularly of, just rim protection and, turning shots away, Chet's going to be better at that. I just want to see how they play as a unit relying on him. Can they really crack the top 10 playing him? Are they going to play Wallace off the bench as another rookie, defensively talented rookie? Yeah, defensively talented, but are they going to play Misic at point of attack on bench lineups? They're incorporating lots of new pieces on the fly. And so that's more what I have an eye for. I love their scheme. I love how all 5 of those guys act as an organism, the way they shade help and the way they switch and how they trust one another. Dort's a delight to watch. So like, I could definitely see it. I wonder if they can line everything up. That's all. If they can line everything up with all their newer guys.
Yeah. How do you pronounce his last name? The head coach, Dagnall. Well, you remember who trained Dagnall? Billy Donovan, man. Billy Donovan, man. They know how to, those guys, man. That coaching tree knows how to juice every ounce out of a defense.
Yep. Okay, so we are now at we've gone through about half the league. So
who was your 14th again? It was my 14th, the 76ers.
Oh, Orlando was. Oh, we didn't get to Houston. We can talk about Houston.
Oh yeah. Let's go to Houston real quickly.
Yeah.
So actually, really quickly, can we just name because Houston's my 23rd, and then I think the 24th team, because I think 14 through 24 was just it was a thing. Actually, you know what? 14 through 26 was a thing for me. What was your range? Like, what's your next range?
Oh God, hard to. I mean, I tried to make little mini tiers here, but I'll say that the ones that I think will be bad, like affirmatively bad, are like, I think Dallas will be bad. I think. You don't think so?
They're in my 14 to 26 tier.
Well, I mean, it's 26, but like,
no, I don't. They're not 26 though. They're not 26. That's the thing.
Okay, so Portland, I don't think is going to be good.
Yeah.
Washington, I don't think is going to be good. Detroit is probably going to struggle. Obviously. So we can talk about Dallas later, but like everything else is more or less on the table. I think with Houston specifically, since I ranked in the top half of the league, maybe I'm putting too much stock into the coaching change, but I just think Udoka really wants them to establish that identity. And I don't think that like Cam Whitmore is going to play a lot as a rookie. I think that he is going to prioritize personnel like Jayshawn Tate off the bench, potentially some Jeff Green, who still sort of knows where to be and can sort of, again, not screw up sort of on defense and bench minutes, to where there's going to be a little bit more defensive depth than it seems. And then it's just about, how much does Van Vliet have left? How I would still expect him to be neutral to positive. It's a belief in Brooks for all of his chicanery, is still a very good defender. And I just really very strongly believe in Tari, and I very strongly believe in Jabari, like even this season, as being pretty good defenders. Şengün is, his dimensions are not good, obviously, but I think that I think he is going to be underrated in his positioning. I think that he can. Is he going to be like a middle of the pack defensive big man this year? No, that's going to be something I think he's sort of shoots for in his prime. But I think there will be lots of protection, and I think their bench is going to have a lot of defensive talent. And so it's wishful, but that's why. That's the case.
They have Reggie Bullock too, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll know. Who knows how much he played? He could be their 10th man for all we know. But yeah. And they just picked up JRE in that Porter trade. I don't know how much he plays either, but yeah.
Right.
Landale, good backup big. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, the Monty Williams is better than DeAndre. But my bottom four, I just want to have this so we can kind of get, because I think it's going to get confusing. We're going to be talking about like 13 teams all in like a weird range. But my bottom four was the Wizards at 30, Pistons at 29, Portland Trailblazers at 28, and I had the Sacramento Kings at 27.
Yeah, I think I had them right around there. I mean, all these teams in the 20s are kind of interchangeable to me. But yeah.
Okay.
Where did you have, speaking of, rim protectors and point of attack guards maybe not syncing up, where'd you have the Indiana Pacers?
I had them at 25.
So right there. Okay. Yeah. I had them and the Kings kind of back to back there as well. Okay. Let's move to the Phoenix Suns. Where'd you have Phoenix? I imagine they're in that 14-26 tier, but what do you think of their defense given their title aspirations?
Yeah. Real quickly, I had Houston at 23.
Okay.
But you might have convinced me to move them up a couple notches, but I have them at 23. And I thought I was being a little too high on them. But Phoenix I have at 24, actually.
Phoenix. That's a tough beat, man. So yeah, I take it you are not very high on their title aspirations in general, but the 20.
No, I am. I think they're going to be a top 2-3 offense in the league.
I agree, but you think that a team with the 24th ranked regular season defense is a title contender?
Yeah. So hear me out. I think it's gonna be a lot of trial and error. There's going to be a lot of trial and error this season, and I just think that their defensive rating won't reflect who they can be in the play. It'll be kind of like I know the Nuggets finished pretty strong. They also had some shooting luck last year, but they finished like middle of the pack. But I think Phoenix will be similar in that it's just gonna be a lot of, we're gonna try new things, try different coverages, see what works. Also gonna save some pitches. Like I feel like one of their best defensive lineups might be Durant at the 5. But
maybe
I know Vogel, like he's a very, very good defensive coach.
Yes. Yeah.
But and I feel like they could, like, again, be a serviceable playoff defense, but in the regular season, I just don't. They're just like, okay, like, see, this is why we need. Okay, would you say? Okay, so one team I actually have above them in defensive rating is the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay.
I think Grant Williams, like, just the verse, because they can play more defensively slanted lineups because they have Luka and Kyrie, so that, I guess.
You mean they can supplement with like defensive specialist types?
Yeah.
I see.
And it's like it's not as many guys as like the trio in Phoenix, and then I think like, they have Kleber, they have Derrick Jones Jr. I think Lively might be able to give him some juice. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, they have Prosper, they have Green. Dante Exum must be like decent if they're gonna bring him out of like NBA retirement to come help out.
Yeah.
I feel
so maybe I was harsh in saying bad, and maybe that's a little harsh. I think I expect Luka and Kyrie, even if they stagger them a good amount, I think they're going to share the floor a lot. And so when that happens, if it's those two and Lively, I mean, I like Lively, and I'm looking forward to his like offensive chemistry as a lob threat because Luka doesn't get lob threats very often. But if it's those two and Lively, it's those two and a rookie, I just think there's going to be like blown assignments everywhere. I think if they're going to really give Prosper minutes like it seems like they want to, Prosper's got great tools. He seems very coachable, but I think those are going to be. I just don't think you can play rookies that many minutes, man, and like hope to have a very solid defense when the point of attack is going to be what it is. And though I think Exum and Green are good, I think Green will probably start for them.
Mhm.
They're going to play Jaden Hardy a lot. And Jaden, for all of his gifts off the bench, is not, not going to be much at the point of attack either. So that's more the question for me is how the point of attack and the rim protector element to me is never going to quite sync up for me for that team. So that's why I have them sort of in the 20s. That's where I got them.
Yeah, so I mean, I have him at 22, and it's like another thing, like one part I know he wasn't like a huge reason for it, but part of the reason the Bulls were so good defensively was Derek Jones Jr. Like he was a very, very good backup small ball five. You could play him with Kleber. Kleber can give you spacing. Play those two together. Imagine like a lineup of those two, Luca, Kyrie, and then like they might be a little too slow. But if Grant Hill was out there, I mean Grant Williams or Josh Green, like that's like a pretty serviceable defensive lineup. Jason Kidd has shown in the past he knows how to extract extra juice out of bad defenses.
That's
Uh,
true. That's true.
so
That's
yeah,
true.
I don't know. Maybe okay. I'm getting who on which center on the Mavericks is worse than Yusuf Nurkic on defense?
I think like Lively this year probably is, though. I mean, he's a much
Okay.
better defensive prospect.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know what to expect from Rashawn, given how sparingly he's played. The last we saw him play regularly, he was better, but I don't know what that's going to be. Um, Dwight Powell, I can't believe he's still around. Like, maybe the answer is only one of them is worse or they're all better. But I also think that that's sort of damning with faint praise. Like, I don't think that makes them good defenders. The fact that they project to
Mhm.
be better than Nurk, that's all. So,
That's fair. Okay. So let's. Okay. So you had the Suns at what?
oh yeah, sort of like around 20. I think I have them technically
Okay.
like 19. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Here, why don't I just read you? Well, let me read you my 15 through 26, and
Go
then
ahead.
we'll break it down. So at 15, I had the Clippers.
Okay.
At 16, I have the Hornets. 17, I have
Oh,
the yeah,
okay.
yeah. 17, I have the Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
18, I have the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
19, I have the Hawks. 20, I have the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
21, this is the team I felt like was really poised for regression. I think they
It's
finished
the
fifth or
Pels.
sixth. Yep, I have the
Yeah.
Pels at 21.
Yep.
22, the Mavericks. 23, the Rockets. 24, the Suns. 25, the Pacers, and then 26, the Jazz.
Okay. Similar. I think the only difference is, I mean, I can read through mine. I think
Yeah,
after
please do.
Orlando, I had Denver, Brooklyn, which we talked about, the Clippers, the Suns, the Knicks, Spurs, Pels, Hawks. Then I think Dallas, Utah, Detroit, Sacramento, Indiana. Charlotte was the one that I would like. Charlotte's the one that's the big difference. So I
Mhm,
had them in sort of my bottom tier.
mhm.
So talk to me about, you must be very high on Mark Williams then, if you have them as sort of a middle of the pack defense.
Well, so last year they ended. I can't remember where they were in the last season. Again, there's the bad podcasting. Um, but anyways, they finished. They were very strong in the second half of last season on the defensive side of the ball,
Finished
despite
20th. Finished 20th. Yeah.
yeah, but they were like 29. I'm saying like after the All Star break, I think they were in the top 7 or 8 after the All Star break. But yeah,
Mhm.
I like Mark Williams. I think he's the best defensive center of the LaMelo Ball era, which like you said is kind of damning with faint praise. Because the centers haven't been all that. Although Mason Plumlee's not. I think he deserves more credit than he gets. But so yeah, I like him. I like their athleticism. Um,
You
PJ
like
Washington.
PJ? You a big
Yeah,
PJ guy?
I like PJ. I
Mm-hmm.
like PJ.
I
I
do
think they had
too.
Frank the Tank on defense. They just honestly, Clifford's got them bought in. I think is the big thing. I think he's got them really bought in. They're young. Um, like so, it's like difference between like so they're okay. They're going to be a team who has like everything to prove, right? They had a down year. They want to win in the regular season. That means a lot to them.
Mm.
Whereas like, and then they've showed their body and they have a center who can anchor their defense. Juxtapose that with Frank Vogel, who's another defensively sainted coach, but he's working with a team whose their eye is towards the spring, right? So they're just going to be experimenting things. They don't have a defensive anchor in the middle that they can hang their hat on. So yeah, that's why I don't know. Now you're kind of talking to me, and I'm thinking I might get a little lower on them, but I don't know. Just so I guess to summarize, end of the season very strong. Clifford has these guys clearly bought in, and Mark Williams is the best defensive anchor of the LaMelo era. I guess those are the three big things for why I had them at 16.
Yeah, Mark, I'm very interested to watch Mark because he got sort of the March, April call up when a lot of teams are not playing at their full strength last year. But I think he showed why he was drafted in the middle of the first round. Obviously, I mean, he's got a 7'7" wingspan and, you know, moves pretty well. So I could see him taking a jump up and being establishing himself as sort of a solid middle of the pack defensive center this year with an eye towards, getting towards the top 12 or whatever when he's in his prime. Maybe. I am not bought in about, I mean, I know LaMelo can get deflections from gambling and everything, but I don't know about him playing so much a point of attack. And it's more that I feel like they're going to play lots of young guys. Miller, I don't know if Miller's going to start. I would actually assume that, let's say Miles Bridges is going to miss a lot of time. I think their starting five would be LaMelo, Rozier, Hayward, Washington, Williams. So I think Miller comes off the bench more often than not, unless they want to bring Rozier off the bench. But between him, Bryce McGowan's, who I think is going to be a member of their rotation, Nick Smith, if they're going to play him. I know that he was a late first round pick, but he also was like a blue chip recruit. So I don't know if they're going to send him to the G League or they're going to give him time. I kind of wonder if their bench is what their depth really looks like after their starting five.
Cody
and
Martin
if they
will
have
also be healthy this year.
who?
Cody Martin.
Cody is good. I do like Cody. So if he is there, if he is their sort of sixth man, or I guess seventh man, if you count Brandon Miller, you can talk me into them getting towards 20th, maybe. Who is their back? I know they got JT Thor. That's another young guy that they're going to try to give more minutes to, but he's more of a 4 than a 5. Nick Richards still there.
Yep.
Their backup 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you got Clifford coaching them and drop relentlessly with those guys. I could see it. I mean, I could see around 20. That's probably where I would have them as their upper range is around 20. If they're better than that, if they're middle of the pack, then they could, they could probably challenge for the play-in. A middle of the pack defense with the firepower they've got and how fast they'll play, you can make an argument that they'll win 37, 38 games, which would be a great outcome for them.
That's where I'm seeing them at. And I think that's kind of where I'm getting them there. I think they're this year's not this year's Kings team that they're an insane transcendent offense, but they're just a team that kind of comes out of left field and really vastly overperforms. And obviously you have to be, you can't be a bottom five offense, bottom 5 defense and be the surprise team of the year in a positive way. Mm-hmm. So my thinking was they're probably middle of the pack in both. That's kind of my thinking there. So some teams that I had them below the Denver Nuggets. I just thought that losing Brown and then they had some shooting luck, and then obviously I think they'll just take their foot off the gas a little bit in the regular season. I still trust their defense in the playoffs, but I just don't see them hanging their head in the regular season.
What do you think of Peyton Watson?
I don't know enough about him, to be honest. I haven't watched him enough. Okay. I hear the craziest things. Apparently, Calvin Booth thinks he's better than Bruce Brown. So
yeah, I mean Calvin really had himself a week this week,
but
Peyton has great tools. like great tools. To me, he is in sort of the Kuminga class of just sort of defensive tools and sort of twitchiness. So I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play enough minutes for them to really affect their defense. If he plays, 13 minutes a game, not going to make much of a difference. But very will be a very interesting defender to watch. I had the Nuggets middle of the pack mainly because I think they get a little bit of boost for their offense being so efficient that they'll always be able to set their defense, or more often than not. And just the institutional knowledge of the starters, KCP is very good. I'm expecting sort of a monster season from Jamal. I think this is going to be the best two-way season of his career. And Aaron Gordon's very good. Jokic knows where to be. So it'll be a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I actually don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas because I don't think they can afford to this season, because I just think the West is much more competitive overall. But I have them around 15. They could be, 21st for all I know. Malone doesn't really let those guys slack off. So I'm counting on that sort of institutional framework to carry him through.
Yeah, I had them at 17. So where did you have the Clippers?
Right there. 17,
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Russell Westbrook's in his Grant Hill era. I think he's like, okay, I've kind of been zapped of my downhill rim pressure, but I still have like all these great tools. So why don't I just become like a lockdown defender? I was really impressed with his postseason defense.
Mm-hmm.
I think Man's a good defender. Kawhi and PG are both healthy to start the year. They're not, all NBA, all defensive Kawhi and PG, but they're still very good defenders.
Yeah, that's the thing with them, man. Like, this is the whole Clippers tease. But if they were to play 45 games together, which I think is on the high end of what to expect between the two of them, but if they were to play that many games together, in those games, I would expect the Clippers to be a top 10 defense. I do. It's hard to predict the games played, for that team. So you got to discount them a little bit, but that's what I think knocks them into the middle of the pack.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I also think Zubac and Plumlee are sort of uninspiring, defensively.
They're just their bodies. They do their thing. I still think Rocco should get more run. I don't know if he'll be allowed to, but and then they have KJ Martin, a little bit more balanced, a little more pop.
They do. Batum's still kicking,
Who else do I talk about? You might have convinced me on the Rockets. I'm really uninspired by the Pelicans. I think that they're going to be poised for aggression. I think it's going to be a lot on Herb Jones's shoulders.
Yep. I also think, if Zion plays more, that might hurt their defense.
Yeah.
Paradoxically.
They'll make up for it on offense.
I also just wonder how much one of these years, like the Valanciunas fall off is coming on D, but we'll see. We'll see if it's this year.
Yeah. And then, okay, so one team that was, I don't know, like, I really like a lot of their personnel, and yet I have them at 26, the Utah Jazz.
Yeah. Talk to me about them. That might start Chris Dunn.
Yeah, so I had in my notes, remind me of the pre-deadline Spurs from last season, where it's like, okay, they have Jakob Poeltl, this guy I know I really like as a rim protector, as a drop big man, and yet they're just bad at defense. And I was like, what's going on here? I like Sohan, but I know it's hard for young guys to be good. And that's kind of how I feel about Taylor Hendricks, excuse me. I'm just butchering everyone's name. I think Taylor Hendricks is really good, but I just like, how good can he be right away?
I don't think he's going to play unless they trade guys at the deadline. Because they got too many guys in the front court.
Yeah, you're right. So so then there's that. I like Dunn. I really like Kessler. I think Lauri Markkanen's like not as bad of a defender as people make him out to be. Kelly Olynyk's just kind of the king of being at the right place at the right time. So I'm like, I don't know. I kind of like some of these pieces. I know Will Hardy's a genius, but it's just like I can't justify putting him over any. Like, for example, the team that they remind me a lot of on defense is the Pacers, where it's like offensively slanted team with a good rim protector who's probably overtasked. But then I'm like, the Pacers at least have Bruce Brown and Andrew Nembhard.
True.
And then I think Jarris Walker has more plug and play ability than Taylor Hendricks. just because of how
Certainly he's going to
local he
play
is.
more this year just
Yeah,
due to
yeah,
team circumstance than Taylor will.
yeah.
But yeah, I'd agree.
So,
If Dunn is really this success story, given where his career was a couple of years ago, because they really do like him. And a few years ago, Chris Dunn as a point of attack guy was fantastic. So if you marry that with Kessler and enough sort of veteran know-how between Markin and Olynyk, John Collins, there's a world where it's a lot better, where it's a pleasant surprise for sure. But that is a team whose identity is like soundly offensive, and Sexton is still going to play a lot, even if it's off the bench. They're going to try to play Keontae George, who's a rook. So I think there's a ceiling to how good they can be. They're kind of in the Charlotte category of like, if I squint, I could sort of see them around 20th thereabouts, but more than likely they'll recede a little bit back in the 20s.
you really talked me out of Charlotte. I kind of want to change that. Oh, man, I really want to change that. So how good will the Spurs be next year? Defensive.
I think we had him about the same spot. I mean, who the hell knows, man? We probably should have gotten the Spurs earlier, given all the intrigue with Wemby. If you believe that like Zach Collins can be like a neutral defender at center, and then you just have Wemby deterring everything. I took the conservative, like they still play so many young guys. They're still going to be experimenting. Wemby's probably only going to play 60 games because they're not going to push him because it's San Antonio. And so that's what kind of put me around. I think I have him like 21.
Yeah, I'm at
22.
I feel like Sohan's going to have a leap.
But here's like, if Wembanyama really is, even if teams eventually adjust to him, I feel like playing him initially is such an experience, like year one for guys who've never played against him, that he'll have a deterrent effect just by being in the vicinity. And then, once you get some more tape on him and you learn, try to wrong foot him or attack him or get him to commit to a certain area of the floor, then maybe there'll be a bounce back in the other direction. But like, man, Trey Jones is a good defender.
Mm-hmm.
Vassell can be solid. If they wanted to win as many games as possible, I could see them getting into the top half of the league in defense. I just don't think they're motivated to win that many games. I just don't think it's going to be their goal. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah. See, now I feel like I might have been too high on them and the Hornets. I kind of want to put them lower.
You're torturing yourself over teams you have in the back half of the league. It's okay.
I want to put the Rockets higher. Now, man. Knicks
to me,
feel very samey. Oh, sorry, I switched topics, but go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that once we got to that kind of 14 range where we were talking about the Magic, the Rockets, that's where I think sort of it gets less fun. Then you're getting into teams that have sort of flawed personnel who are just like trying to make it work and trying to survive. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel like half the league is doing this year, is just they're going to try to just survive or figure themselves out and figure out how they want to play on defense. But those first 14 or so, that top half of the league is where the real juice is. And that, I'm glad we spent as much time on it as we did.
Yeah. So the kind of what I said was Knicks feel very samey.
Yep.
Like probably pretty similar. I don't see any difference. They're going to crash the offensive glass a lot. That's going to kill their transition defense a little bit, but who cares because they get a lot of offensive rebounds. I think the Hawks will be a little bit better because I don't think John Collins is a good defender. And again, I like that trio. I'm really intrigued by that trio of AJ Griffin, Jalen Johnson, and Onyeka Okongwu.
Yeah.
I feel like it'll push their defense up a little bit. And I think I still think Murray's a very good defender on the perimeter. So I had them at 19. What did you have them again?
I think like 20. I think I had them 20th. But they have a little sleepery. They could legitimately be a top half of the league defense. I could see that happening.
I think they're going to be very good. I think they could be a top. I think they might be the team to overtake Philly in the standings. Like take their little void because it's going to be last year's top four was in the
Milwaukee,
East, Milwaukee,
Boston,
Boston,
Cleveland.
Philly. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I see three of those teams kind of staying there, but I think there's going to be a little open spot in the castle, and I see them as one of the teams that has a really strong chance of taking it.
I don't disagree, but with my number fourth ranked defense, Philadelphia 76ers, no one's coming for that spot this year, baby. Nobody. Nobody. I expect the Hawks to be a top 6 team as well. I think it's sort of among our community that is becoming an increasingly popular thing to say, but I think it makes all the sense in the world. I think they are so deep and they have so many different looks that they can give you depending on how they want to play in a given matchup. And I also think that, they're motivated to get out of the play-in. And, this is first full year of Quinn. Like, I think there's going to be a bounce. I could see them, 46 wins, that neighborhood. Definitely, for sure. Yeah. Anything else, Matt? Anything else you want to say? You still look tortured over ranking,
Oh, man. I feel like I really messed up with the Rockets one, man. I'm feeling it right now. I'm feeling queasy.
It's okay. It's okay. Only the most depraved listeners are going to hold you to this later. So don't worry about it. I'm just glad I got to have a conversation with you.
Hey, whenever you want that, I can give you that. I can grant you that much. But I was gonna say, I know this is like a hosty question. I'm not the host of this pod. I'm the guest, but I just feel the need to ask you: of these 30 teams, which one are you gonna have the most fun watching on defense?
Probably the Rockets. I just can't
Okay.
wait to watch the Rockets.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Or the Magic. I will love watching Suggs and Fultz. Love watching them. I just get like the Paolo Wendell experience is kind of a bummer. But if they embrace a lot of switching across those 5, I think they'll be a lot of fun to watch. But I love watching Tari Eason. I love watching him. And so Dylan kind of discounts it because I don't want to watch Dylan hit people in the nuts and act like an idiot and
I
get
love
himself
watching
ejected.
that.
Nah, man, there's a fine line. There's a fine line. And he is a habitual line stepper, to, quote Charlie Murphy, a habitual line stepper. So I would say Rockets and Magic are right at the top of the list. And Thunder. Those 3 would be the ones I'm most looking forward to watching play D. What about you?
I'd say Rockets for sure. Yeah, Rockets, Bulls, and the Nets. I want to see my Brooklyn Nets. I want to see them set the record for switches in a season.
Look, man, this is another thing I should have probably researched before we started, but I don't know about how many teams. Like, usually the team that is built to be very good on defense, but has just sort of like lackluster offensive personnel, the defense tends to recede because the team is not winning that many games. If you have a bad offense in the NBA, it's just so hard to survive. And that usually means that, well, you start to do like a little tank the last couple of years and the defensive rating starts to go down. The exception to that last year was the Heat, who I think had like the 24th ranked offense, but they're the Heat. So well coached, so much institutional knowledge, all that stuff. With Brooklyn, they don't have the star power on offense. And so I just don't know that the defensive personnel holds. But it would be such a great story if it did. Like, that would be awesome. So I applaud you for like how closely you're going to watch them this year. I hope that they don't let you down.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for listening. Matt, Forbes, Opta Analyst, SB Nation. Is there anything you're coming out with? Any interview? Any other 90s legend who you're going to assume is rude to you? Anything else that we can look forward to from you, my friend?
No. Just look forward to seeing me on the news. Guy just sitting on top of a bridge because he messed up with the Rockets.
Oh, shut up, Matt. Not funny, dude. Not funny. Call your pal Gary. He'll cheer you up. He's such a nice guy,
Yeah, he is. He's a good guy.
All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for listening. This has been Chucking Darts. It's okay to be wrong about sports. Find your dartboard and start chucking. Thank you.